Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show.
Good morning, everybody. Today we have a great opportunity to speak with Tim Wort in the UK. Tim is a very interesting individual with a business that is called Ignite AI Solutions. Tim's background worked at IBM for a long time in his career, helping companies in their growth and business scaling. And now he's in a process where his company is using AI and other alternatives to really achieve that growth in ways that many of us have not thought of. So we're going to let Tim share his story and, more importantly, what they're doing at Ignite that could be important for many companies who are listening to this broadcast. So Tim, tell me, you got into advisory work after a long career with IBM, and now you're focusing in on what the value of AI could be. How did that journey start for you?
Well, Dennis, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Great to be on the podcast with you, and a great place to start. So I'm going to go all the way back, but move pretty quickly. The journey started for me when I was 17. Oh, wow. So when I was 17, I left home, and I took the next 3 years to study computer science and picked up a computer science degree. And that was in the early 80s. So that was a pretty long time ago.
Right. Yes, it was. And so that was pretty adventurous at that time.
It was. It was adventurous. I knew that I preferred a numeric and analytical sort of way of going. I decided pure maths wasn't going to work for me. And I found this, and I thought the more I looked into it, the better I felt about it. And it was a move and a direction, investment in the future. And it turned out to be very, very successful for me. So I did that for 3 years when I was 17. 2 months after I'd graduated, I joined what I later found out to be one of the most successful sales and marketing businesses on the planet in IBM. And over 17 years there, I led a software business in the UK, based in the UK, over £200 million software business before I was 30. And then before I left IBM, they asked me to move to New York. I moved over there. And inside software business, we were building a new division around a product which is now much better known than it was at that stage. And we launched the WebSphere brand. And I built, with a few colleagues, the sales and marketing engine and organization globally, 3,500 people, 2.5 billion business over 18 months working from New York.
Now, were you in White Plains?
No, White Plains at that time was the head office for the American organization, and given that I was doing a worldwide job, I was based in Somers, upstate, and between there and Armonk, which was the corporate headquarters. Okay. So I was doing a worldwide job, responsible for most of the sales and marketing for the WebSphere brand that we formed up.
Interesting. My career started at a competitor, Xerox Corporation. Right out of college, I was hired by Xerox.
And if someone was doing a debate with me who might also have been outstanding sales and marketing organizations at that time, Xerox would be probably, I would put number 2. I appreciate you might change that order around.
Yeah, it was so fun. We used to love to compete against IBM because they were outstanding. They were very good, well-trained, well-developed. And ironically, the IBM instructors went to the Xerox training school to learn their training. So we always felt if they had to come to us, help them train, we must have had some advantage. But ironically, it doesn't matter. Outstanding corporations and nothing but high respect because they were so well run and so well developed. So now you have your career. You're there at IBM. What got you to leave IBM and start your own consultancy?
Well, when you're in a very, very big company, as Dennis, you will know, it's difficult to figure out what the next step will be, but it's generally a little smaller. So I spent another few years, 20 in total, in technology, and then I moved into telecoms, and I moved in-house. And having done that move, I ran across 3 outstanding Sri Lankan entrepreneurs who we met and very quickly offered me the opportunity to be their chief operating officer and chief commercial officer of a £90 million business they'd built from scratch over a few years.
Wow.
The first task they asked me to do was to build them a strategy to continue to grow faster, but having recognized they hadn't made any profit for the last 2 years, to do it profitably. So I took 45 days. I built them that outline strategy. It took us 5 days to take them through it before they were comfortable with it. And they signed it off telling me individually and collectively, if there was anything that was in the way at any point, 24 hours a day, phone them, tell them what was needed to be done, and they would move it out the way. And they gave me a very clear signal of their commitment. 5 years later, we took that 90 million pound business, and that business was a 750 million pound business over 5 years.
Outstanding. That's a great success story. So as you had that success and you saw what happened, tell me, what is the problems you look to identify, Tim, when you work with an organization and solve those problems? But more importantly, why is that important to you, Tim?
Yeah, sure. Two good questions there. So firstly, just segue out of that. So after all that time, what I realized is I'd had a lot of sales and marketing experience. I'd been in growth always. Technology had been constant since I was 17. And so two themes were running through. And I decided to build a consulting business, then pivoted it into an advisory business because I thought that better met the work that I was looking to do, and then moved that forward. So we got an advisory business advising people on growth, accelerating growth problems, and also technology enabled and empowered, how we can use technology to drive that. That comes back to your next question then. The specific problems that I see almost every client I speak to, and they don't necessarily articulate it themselves to start with, is number one, some form of a growth problem. Okay. Either we've come off the rails a little bit, we might be sacrificing margin, we might be sacrificing profit, we might have cost issues around what we're doing, we might have revenue growth issues, margin growth issues, net operating profit, EBITDA issues, cash flow issues, whatever it is. They've got some form of challenge or opportunity around growth that they're looking for some help with. So that's the first thing we're looking for. Over the last 2 years, as we decided to pivot the advisory business to being AI-powered advisory, that was too good in a technology swing with AI for me to ignore it. I've been in technology for 17 years. Pivot onto that, find some partners, start learning, start working with it. And then the second question we find is, this AI thing's going like gangbusters, Tim. We're really doing nothing about it, or we've played with a few things. It's not working for us. What should we be doing with AI? And we bring those two things together. That's a conversation, both sides of that conversation that we have with every client prospect that we talk to now. So those are the two key problems that we help them with.
You think about what's going on in the world with AI, there is so much mystery as well as there's opportunity. So if people have someone like yourself who can mentor or guide how to effectively utilize AI in their growth strategy, I think it's a home run. So let's talk a little bit about your ICP. When you look at your clients you want to pursue, who was that ideal client profile?
Well, I'd spend a lot of years probably in the same in and out of airports and going internationally. My wife, I once joked when we were living in New York with my wife, I said, look, I thought the winters would be colder here. I didn't think that was too cold. I got to March. She said, Tim, I've got to stop you there. You haven't been in the country for more than 2 weeks since the beginning of July. And it was very difficult to do the job and actually be home for dinner on the same day. But having done that, I thought, well, look, there was something that had interested me, back to the second part of your earlier question. The US is always cited as having used technology unbelievably successfully to deliver an extended productivity boom across their measure of GDP and their market in general. The UK, by contrast, has always been deemed to be someone who failed to take the most of that opportunity. And so I'm sitting there thinking, wow, what's going on? I'm kind of in this space. I've been in technology since I've been 17. I'm working with with international and big businesses. We're making those guys go well. What's going on with the base, the industrial base, the commercial base in the UK? So I thought what I could easily do is take those expertise, those skill sets that I'd garnered over 25 years in the technology and telecoms industries, and apply them into small mid-market businesses. And for me, it's become a fascinating challenge as to why businesses in the UK specifically have proved very resilient against being productive and growing faster using technologies. And so I take it as a sort of a personal mission. The goal is to cover and speak with and try to influence in some way, not necessarily a revenue assignment, but in some way, 1,000 SMEs in the UK, ideally before 2028, but worst case by 2020. estimates so far as we've talked to and working with in some way between about 250 and 300 already in the first 18 months.
That's pretty good. So you're 1/3 of the way to your goal almost, it seems like.
Yeah, and we were growing through that and trying to work out a whole lot of other things as well at the same time.
But you're going to have to get on your horse and ride pretty fast to catch up for that differential of 700 in the next 3 years. So what is your strategy to achieve that?
Well, over that time, we've built a number of connections into effective entrepreneur and business leader networks. And so we're reasonably comfortable that we're accelerating with that rate of connection with people and engagement with people, and increasingly being invited into opportunities a bit like this with other entrepreneurial networks, more specifically focused in the UK or Europe. And obviously, having now spoken to 200 to 300 people, having the background that I've got both on growth advisory and the work around AI, we're not finding it hard to get engagement with people who want to have that first conversation. And that's just the start of it.
And that leads me to one of my next questions based on your response. When you look at the companies you're going after, I imagine you're going, these are owners of these SMEs that you can get access to, not necessarily a board where you have to go through multiple channels, do an RFP, and have all these different things that can delay a selling cycle. So when you identify in your ideal client, you've got to work with what we call decision influencers as well as decision makers. How do you get to your decision maker in a shorter time to compress the lead time from contact to fruition to doing business?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So one of the ways we do that is embedded in the process that we use.
Okay.
So the question I ask all senior people we meet, let's assume you've got a business, say you've got 50 or 100 people in it. Say you've got a mid-market sized business, you're going okay, but you're not growing particularly excitingly. Let's say we did something that everyone sort of raises at some stage. We started a little wee AI project. Maybe we buy a Copilot enterprise license or something like that. And we're reasonably successful. Every single employee delivers a level of 2-digit productivity gain over, let's say, 9 months, 18 months. So that's sort of on the surface, quite a nice, easy project to get going. What's happened to the company's business when we've achieved that? So what's happened to the productivity level, not of all the employees, every employee's become more productive. What's happened to the productivity of the business? What do you think? Let's say the average gain was, say, 15% on average for each employee. What happens to the productivity gain for the business? What the shareholders and the board? What would the answer be?
Well, you would hope it's at least 15.
So that's a good answer. That's the best answer you get. And mostly, in actual fact, I don't actually get an answer. Unfortunately, the real answer is pretty close to nothing most of all of the time. Now, the reason is let's turn the thing the other way around. Let's take that business, just say it's a typical business, right? And we look at how would we measure productivity for the business? Well, one simple way, and there's different ways, is we would say, let's take a fixed cost base or a fixed headcount base. So keep that level. And we've got a level of productivity at the moment. So let's say we'll measure it by revenue. And therefore, we would want to see revenue grow and then gross margin grow and net blah, 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 EBITDA, all the rest of it, right? We want to see all of that grow. So now we think about, well, if we applied AI to achieve that objective, we would be doing totally different work to almost all the work that was being done across the employees when they played with Copilot. So it's so easy, and we look at the data now and we see the vast majority, over 80% of SMEs who employ AI into what they consider to be meaningful projects, get no positive ROI or return out of those projects and that activity.
Wow. So if I'm a decision maker and I want to bring you in, what is the metrics I'm looking at to warrant why I brought you in, and what return do I receive on average?
So that's the great question. So now, back to your earlier question, we're going in at the top table. We go in normally on the CEO, the founder, the co-founder, or whoever's really running the top of the business.
Okay.
And we go in that way because the reason we go in is back to the paradox, the 15% AI paradox. If you're going to invest in AI, a lot of people say, well, let's just make a bit of space. Let's get people a bit comfortable with the co-pilots or whatever it is. To me, that's a complete waste of time. Look, it's your business. You can do what you want with it, but it's a complete waste of time, right? So we go in, we're with the senior team. Now what we want to just understand from them is, tell me what your strategy is. Tell me what your business strategy is. We've already articulated that you've got some sort of growth problem. You'd like to use technology to drive that growth. We're going to leave technology aside. We're going to understand what the growth problem is. Goes back to the growth advisory work that I've been doing for nearly 15 years. And tell us about your strategy. Normally by then, we present them with an opportunity for a chargeable day. And we come in, we work with their top team, or maybe some people from their AI team, because this has got an AI flavor to it as well. I'll come to that in a second. And we want the business people in the room doing the thing they're paid to and they're expert to do, which is talking to us about the business strategy. I don't want the business people trying to tell us about AI. I'm quite happy for them to say, and we think in that area, Tim, we could use something on AI might help, or in that area. That's all great. But I want the business people to do what they can definitely do and sit in the room. We sit a Fathom or a Fireflies in that room. We record everything that happens. Everything that happens. What we say to them is, you tell us about your strategy. You talk about that. We engage in that because I've spent 15 years in that growth strategy business, more if I count all the years that I've done in developing it, but as an advisor or consultant. We know about that. We were with the chief operating officer of a 40 million pound business last week, and she's highlighting stuff to us and she's telling us her strategy. I said, you've got one big thing we haven't talked about. You've got an elephant in the room. She says, what is it? I said, you've got an ERP suite in your architecture and you're doing your invoicing somewhere else. Tells me I got a Smith or something here that your ERP is a bit screwed up on your technology stack. She said, well, how did you notice that? We think that, but you didn't mention it and da-da-da. And so we've got another strategy element that if you're going to grow and you've got no support from your ERP, that's going to be a pretty serious problem for most businesses sooner or later, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we start by having that business in the room with business. We've got AI in the room, in my case, in terms of Fathom. We record everything. We've got a human expert in the room listening for the nuances that the AI can't hear or tell because it doesn't have all of the experience. And then what we tell them is we're going to do that. We're going to have a conversation about where they are with AI, just a simple one, whatever, any ideas they got with AI. And then once we've understood the strategy, we take that away, any considerations they've got on the AI side, and then we come back with a report back where we've analyzed their strategy, prioritized it for them against 3 or 4 key measures, and then we've looked at where are the opportunities to apply AI in priority to the things that they have now told us are important to them. Now, when we do that, typically we stop at 50 watt, Tim. We can get to a significant number of AI opportunities pretty quickly. So we tier those and we measure them in a number of different ways. And that then becomes the spine of the work that we do with them. So we measure them based on their ability to drive growth, their ability to pay back reasonably quickly and quick enough, the ease with which the solution can be built, and how ready the organization might be in terms of adopting what we're discussing. So we report back as part of our first chargeable activity with them. We've understood their strategy, played that back to them. Almost never when we ask for the strategy in the first place do we get a 30-page document. Do we get a 20-page PowerPoint deck? Do we get anything other than spreadsheets from the CFO, 20, 30 minutes from the chief executive to explain what they're trying to do, and a bit more? We infer the strategy from those discussions. We clarify back that those inferences are all correct, or that acts as a challenge, which is healthy. And then we come back to them and saying, you've told us that is your strategy. That's how you're going to go about it. We've picked a few things out of there, some insights you didn't realize, some ideas for you about how you might grow. We were working with a business before. They wanted to grow from 30 to 50. We had the whole conversation. We came back after listening to the conversation, said, you know, one thing that didn't come up in the room? When you get to 50 million, 40 million of the products will be products you don't have today. Your NPD is your critical driver of growth. And he's like, wow. You're correct, it is, but we weren't thinking about that. The second insight we put into the room for them is you're going to grow from 25 to 50. You want to do it in 3.5 years or whatever, right? You're the leader of the business today. What's going to get you there is your management team and your management system. You've got no management system. You're a chummy guy, you're a super friendly guy, you're super smart at a ton of stuff, and each of these people are. You've got no management system that's going to deliver your strategy, so we build the strategy with you, but you need a management system, which was Insight Zero, and you need 40 million. You need new products that are capable in 3 to 4 years' time of delivering 40 million for you. Two massive insights. Forget the AI. The AI helped us to observe those, and we played around with them,
Right.
and we chatted with it. And then the other bit that they all really wanted is, tell me about the AI opportunities. And we stop at 50. I mean, to be honest, we should stop at 20. We stop at 50 because they want to see loads of ideas. And we tell them straight away, we've given you 50. There's no business on the planet that's capable of implementing those 50 straight away.
Executing 50, you're right.
We've tiered 0 and tier 1, or tier 1 and tier 2. Phase 1 will be getting started with the tier 1 and the tier 0, if there's a tier 0, and that's what we'll do for you. Here's the return we think could happen. We need to now have the discussions to go into the depth of the use cases in each of those areas. But by then, we're all over their strategy with them, which they like. We've given them more than they can swallow. We've then pared that back and made it presentable, and we've advised them on what we think we can get. We've kept expectations very low. We give ourselves enough time, because you just need a bit more time sometimes with AI. And we've been pretty conservative about our estimates. One of the first client projects we worked on, we said, we'll do this. It'll probably take us about 6 or 8 weeks. We got about there in 6 or 8 weeks. We think it might give you 45%, 50% productivity gain, which in the old world is unheard of, right? People are thinking about 12%, 15, 18, 20.
Right.
And instead of 45, 50, she measures it back. The first week of going live, she messages it back and says it's 75% productivity reduction, Tim.
Wow. So obviously you've got track records, a proven history, and testimonials that you can validate. We deliver what you say, which is critical. So now how do people hear about your company? If they want to go in to find Ignite AI solutions, how do you market? So let's talk about some of the more traditional ones that you're familiar with. Referrals, obviously satisfied clients are the best testimony to get a new client. And you might use those as a reference, or if someone's in a company you work with and they leave and go somewhere else, you already have a foot in the door because they've experienced what you guys can do.
Yeah.
Direct marketing. You might have something on LinkedIn, or you might do something in conferences that you attend and get an audience to potentially speak there at a conference. And then you've got, the traditional methods of, an email campaign to clients in your ICP, trying to see if there's a connection there, and or you might be doing some form of social media. Which of these are yielding the highest return for you to get attention for your company?
The number one channel for marketing inbound, available to every business, but loads of businesses don't start on it early, or start on it too late, or start on it inaccurately, is of course referrals. Now, yonks ago when I first started, people were all over customer satisfaction, and it always seemed that was a little bit odd, because people could just push you back and say, yeah, Tim, customer satisfaction, yeah, we're great. We've now moved to Net Promoter Score, and we're looking for promoters. People are pretty conversant with Net Promoter. If someone's watching and they don't know what it is, Google it. You'll see the charts. You'll see the method. It's a pretty tough method the first time you go through it. We want someone who's worked with us or is thinking of working with us to have had such a positive experience that if they're in the bar with someone at the weekend, or in a restaurant having dinner, or at someone's house having a dinner party, when someone says, how was your week? And they might be businessy type of conversation or not, they'll say, well, an interesting thing happened this week. These guys came in and they start talking about this and that, and that's blown us away a bit. Now, what's the fundamental underlying of that? And that's something that people originally told me not to do. And so we do it from the start. And this is a phrase that I really don't like, but I use it a tiny bit, which is 10x.
Okay.
Right? So the first time we 10x, and people told me not to do this, is before we've signed the client. So we have those first conversations. We use the fundamental philosophy of good selling, which is we just try to find something they need help with. That's all we're trying to do. We find something they need help with, talk around that. We generally then find some other things that they really need help with, a bit like the ERP example I was giving you before. And then we 10x in the virtual room, because a lot of it's like this, virtual. We 10x that discussion from the get-go. And people said, Tim, you don't do any telling, don't do any teaching, don't share it with them, tell them where you can get them to, don't tell them how or anything. We just 10x them on value in the room, and that's where we do most of the marketing. So we can do other things. We can do LinkedIn outreach. We can find people, whatever. We're in quite a lot of networks where we're talking to people about ideas and progress and how to get started and approaches that work and what not to do. That sort of simple example, you can do that little deployment, that paradox deployment on the 15%. Right. But, it's your business. Do what you want, but that isn't going to change the game for you. That's not the conversation we're having. And so referral is there, and therefore our goal from the start, right from the first moment, is to blow the socks off, okay? 10x it. So we set out to do that. And then we'll pick up bits and pieces. We've got a reasonable amount going on LinkedIn. The profiles are there. We've got different partners and individuals that I work with and whatever, bringing stuff in. And I've got 3 or 4 business partners I work with through different networks. We've got a Rabbit AI connection. We've got Ignite AI. And that network is into some of the networks we've got of sort of entrepreneurial and smaller businesses, SME businesses, is quite good at bringing in connections. And then we start running in the challenges of running that funnel, which is a different discussion.
All together. Right. All right. So with that being said, and your goal is you still have 700 plus to hit your target, to get you your 1,000. Is that producing enough yield for you to have the target reachable?
I think we can reach that target probably somewhere closer to 28 than 30. What are we? We got 2 years from the end of this year. If we end the end of this year, because this was
you had 18 months.
Yeah, the first sort of 9 months is all really building and incubation, and so I reckon we can get to that number. But between comfortably, I reckon we get to that number for 2030, and I've got a feeling that we could get there by 2028.
Wow, outstanding. So now let's talk about retention of your customer. You do a job, you work with them, and you may have a contract period, a statement of work that you initiate with them. Could be 3 months, 6 months, or whatever the project may be. When that project is done, why do they stay with you guys, and what do you do to retain your clients so you don't have to always go out and get new ones, but get more out of existing clients?
Yeah. So great question. And you very kindly, I didn't know you were going to do that, you dropped in one of my least favorite words, which is the R word. So I'm okay with that in the way you used it, but I'm not okay with that in the way many people use it. And I'll talk to you about that right now. So we've been in the room, we've had a discussion with them about what they want to do. We've used micro case studies, anecdotally, all the way through our conversations straight from the start. So we're talking and telling our story via a series of case studies, experiences that we've had. And that's the value of the 250, 300, right? And we've got businesses in different sectors. We can cross-sell those little stories. So we're doing that. How we work. So the first session, the first thing we get them to commit to is we would like to work with you to understand your strategy, to understand how AI can best be suited to your strategy. So we get that going, that's chargeable, we report back. We go to phase 1. Now here's the next thing we do, which is different. So we agree a fee, which they will pay, a set fee they will pay monthly. What contract you signed, Tim? We never sign a contract.
Okay.
If it's working for you, and it's working for us, then it's working. If it's not working for you, we'll have a conversation about why, and we'll be doing this interactively, and we'll make changes and prioritize things differently till we've got a route that's working better to you, so we'll listen to you. If it's not working for us, we'll do reverse of that and have the same discussion. At no point in time will they be committed to do anything more than they want to do at every point in time. Now, our job, and we've teed this up quite nicely, look, I've got 50 AI projects here, right? We're only going to start on between 6 and 10. We're going to learn a huge amount about working with that client about those first few projects. One of the criteria was speed to value, essentially. We're excited by value transformation. So I've been in fast growth businesses that deliver outcomes. We didn't talk about fast growth. We didn't have fast growth spreadsheets. We delivered fast growth. So 20 years in technology, 80 quarters. Okay, and not everyone understands why I'm talking about quarters, but the people who know, right? And so we're committed to a drumbeat. We meet with the senior team mostly every week, if not once a fortnight, and we keep building momentum, because on fast-moving projects with big opportunities that you want to move quickly, what we've learned is momentum takes a bit to build. It's very easy to lose, but actually if you maintain it, you can work and continue to maintain it.
Right.
The second thing we do, it's got to be sustainable, right? The second thing we do in all of that is it is in our interests to understand the use case and the return on that use case.
Okay.
Frankly, for this audience, even more than it is in the client's interests. Now, I've been client side quite a bit. You will have been with loads of people who are client side. And what happens is they send a business case up to the CFO signs it off, the CEO signs it off, Almost, for most of those projects, there's very little review of whether it delivered what they signed off it was going to deliver, right? And small, medium businesses are no better at that. They're probably worse at that. For me, it matters. So we started a project with one of my clients. I've been working with him for 7-8 years. He started the first thing he wanted me to do was work with one employee in his business. And he asked me if I would mentor him. I said, yeah, chemistry works, smart guy, we'll do that. He then put me into that business on sales and marketing. We then did it on product and growth. He's now rolled me across all of the business in his portfolio. He's got 4 nicely run businesses moving. How do we do that? We stay involved and we keep the value discussion going. So one of his businesses, we've just done a massive piece of AI work. They had a core process that was driving their growth. We work with clients on strategy, say, what drives your growth? What enables your growth? Let's talk about the drivers first, because most businesses, it's more important to get the deals in. And then depending on what you're selling, you've got to fulfill them. So, we got some tellies in the warehouse, we can ship them until we can't, right? But let's drive the business. And we work with them on those drivers of the business. He was in a very complex sector, the defense sector, highly specialized, didn't know anything about defense, never done any work in defense. And his bid processes are extraordinary. 180-page tender responses, hugely technical, hugely detailed, ISO standards, all sorts of stuff coming out of your ears. Never seen anything like it. It was taking them 4 man-months to complete a proposal.
No doubt.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing, right? And so completely unscalable, but he built the first part of his business very quickly. He'd built an 18 million pound business in 3 years. So there's something going on here, but we wanted to go to the next step. So I said to him, look, we need to address this process with you. Would you let me work with your team? So I worked with 2 people in his team, and so it was a 4-man-month process. Within 4 weeks, we had prototyped it, pilot tested, and delivered the first new proposal. And instead of taking 4 months, it took them 6 days.
Huge in terms of, huge savings.
You do the maths and you calculate it properly, it's like a 92% saving, right? But most importantly, you can get these pieces of work now done in 6 days. Now, I was all over that work. Back to this case about value. I was all over that work and I was right on them. I want you to log every hour you spend with AI to work on this and develop this, And I want you to go back and analyze what you did with that other project. And that was really simple. They were only on one task. They were doing that for 4 months. So that was easy. And then we got the data out. But they could easily have said, oh, I didn't count and we've been doing this for, so many weeks or whatever, and I've lost track. But for me, it was really important. I asked them to track it. They tracked it. We got the numbers out, and it's 6 days versus 4 months. And you do the math, depending on how you do it, you end up with a number, right?
Right.
So my job then is to talk back to the CEO, let him know. So he didn't know how that team were going. I said, your team over there, the people in that team, Fred and Sally, done a fantastic job. I'm just letting you know, you've got brilliant people in your team. They're young people, so they're not adverse to using AI. Both of them are under 25. They've got no knowledge of defense contracting, but they've used AI, and we've done a couple of smart things with how we did that. We built an expert panel of 17 experts who knew about defense in AI for them to build those bids. And they have done outstanding work, and their 4 months has now gone down to 6 weeks. And I said to him, in my 30 years, I have never seen a bigger productivity gain on any material project like that, to be honest, unless there's some weird stuff going on, and never done so quickly by such super keen young people who, by the way, didn't have 30 years experience in doing that. So the question was, how do we keep going when the first thing's done is that? So that is the story of how we have to work. So this is the account management sales story. We got to be in there managing the account, making sure we know what's going on. And I do this work because I love huge return by using technology for businesses who are pretty well run businesses, but they just haven't got the experience I've got. That's the work I love, right? And so
you're passionate about it, obviously.
I am passionate about it, right? Because I think, holy cow, the UK needs to be getting more productive, back to that. So it all sort of comes together in quite a nice way. But so what you've got to do is you've got to stay in there. You've got to remember that you developed a load of other opportunities. And then you've got to always be positioning and kind of working through so they can see your value. You don't have to sell it, but you just have to articulate it.
I would agree. So you're very proactive in the account management piece to make sure that the results are going to be there, and you guys are aware, cognitive of all the functions that are going on, so you can orchestrate whatever you can to make sure you get that improvement in that productivity. So looking ahead, and you say, one of my biggest challenges for my business growth. What are those challenges for you, Tim?
Well, the biggest one, so I'm able to work for myself. So if my boss is beating me up, then I'm beating myself up. So I don't really have that problem. I can choose how much we want to do. Let's say I wanted to continue to grow the business faster. Clearly, my scalability is a challenge. And in any advisory-led business, that's the case. Now, is it possible that I could convert an awful lot of my skills and expertise into some macro mega AI agent? It's possible, but that wouldn't solve the problem. So at the moment, we're scaling the business because we effectively have this network of assistants, agents that do a huge amount of work for us and help with that. The second way, the challenge is, we're building networks in our business where we work with different people in a very different and dynamic way without having to hire any of them, without having to manage any of them, in a way where we've got sort of contractors. We come into, quite interesting, quite fluid agreements. We do revenue splits and based on how it's going to go. And I think in this space, we've got the opportunity to continue to do that. So if you've got a core capability that you're only using 10% of the time, 15% of the time, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take that out so you can use it more. Now, I talk to sales organization leaders about this all the time. Why, if your account manager had 12 accounts, your average account manager 2 years ago, why haven't they got 36 accounts today? I said, Tim, I don't think you understand. So I said, look, I've been in this space for a very long time. I understand it perfectly well. Put in the agents, you automate the calls, you record every call, you know what your best proposal looks like, you contextualize it with a drop-in if you need to, leave a note, and then off you go. You build the proposals, you check that from quality, someone else does that, send it out. Well, so why are you coming back to the office? Well, I had to talk to someone about, what about what? It was in the call. Leave a voice note at the end of the day, we'll disseminate that, we'll put in a process for managing that, right? So for me, the biggest constraint, there's going to be a huge opportunity in the market because more businesses are starting to do delivery of real return. And that word is getting out there. So being left behind will look more painful. The two biggest constraints are people, human, cultural issues, and leadership issues. So the data that you look in the market says that people over 40 are much noticeably more resistant to AI than people under 35 or 25. Under 30 or 25.
I would agree.
Those big projects that I'm talking about, those returns, almost all of them are done with people who are under 30. In some cases, they're done with people who've only been out of school less than 24 months, which is extraordinary, right?
You don't have to change bad habits either.
One, you don't have to change bad habits or attitudes, worse still, right? And two, we can quickly persuade them they don't need to be scared of this, because their answer to AI in every case is become an exemplar. Don't fear it. Start using it. Don't worry about mistakes. It's your organization's responsibility to put the guardrails in, right? We'll help them with that. That's part of the work we do. And then it's your job to just find examples. Talk to me. I'm available. Talk to my colleagues. Talk to your colleagues and use it. And they surprise themselves and they're just delighted and they go off skipping a bit, and they're thinking, hey, that was pretty cool. Where's the next one? Right. And it's the other. So the biggest two issues are, the biggest three issues: can we scale ourselves as advisors? That is a challenge, right? We come back to that a bit more, but I've talked a little bit about that. So we eat our own dog food. We are using AI every day. Our ability to get proposals out, our ability to respond to meetings, our ability to get principles, prototypes out to clients to speed them along, say this is what it could look like, it's not even 10x, it's 100x what it was 18 months ago. The second thing then is the people issue. So we've got to see them coming and we've got to work with them carefully. We've got to find the 5 or 10% of the people in the organization who are happy to do some of this work, not the other group who want to block it. And we get that all the time. We had a little call with a guy earlier today with a client. I think he's blocking a little bit. And then the other issue is the leadership team, which is actually easier to deal with than the pervasive people issue, is the leaders get in the way by all sorts of things that they think are sensible, which aren't, by managing this new technology without the flexibility it needs and trying to manage it in the old way. And by the way, many of these people, when they manage it in the old way, are the people who end up with a screwed up ERP or a CRM that doesn't work or whatever it is, right? So I'm saying to them, why don't we just agree we're going to do it a bit differently? And why don't we try to do that? And
they fight change. You know that.
The leaders do it in a different way because we can have the conversation with them and they can convince themselves that they're not going to do it. But then when they go back and behave, they behave in the way they've always behaved, because behavior is a difficult culture to change. So that's a little bit about what I think some of the challenges are.
Well, when you look at it, we had 30 minutes and we're way past that. We're at 40 minutes and we've had a fabulous dialogue about what you guys do and incredible passion on your part. So let me ask you, if people want to reach out and get in touch with you, Tim, as well as your company, what are the best methods for them to do that? How can they reach you?
Well, the simplest way would probably to reach out through LinkedIn. Everyone has access to that. I have a UK mobile number and we can make that available. And I have an email address, which is in my original business, which is tim@ppc-advisory.co.uk.
We'll make sure all that's available for everybody and make sure that they know how to reach you. And if you do want us to go ahead and have that phone number, we'll make sure that's available as well.
That'd be great.
But our time's up, and I've enjoyed it. I'm going to tell you, Tim, you have a passion for what you do as much as anyone I've interviewed in 2026, and your ability to articulate what AI can do and how to integrate it effectively is pretty clear. And I think anyone who's looking at how to really get growth through the utilization of AI, I think you guys are one source they should definitely look at Ignite AI Solutions. So I want to thank you for your time, Tim. I've enjoyed it. I think the audience will definitely have learned a bunch. I hope you've had a good dialogue with us as well.
Dennis, thank you for the invitation. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and nice to talk to you. And we had some similarities in background over there with the Xerox and IBM thing, so it was really nice to meet you today. So I really enjoyed it. Thanks for inviting me on.
You're welcome, Tim. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you've learned valuable lessons and strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.